Parallel is a word One Piece fans love to death. Everything is a parallel of something. While it may not be the case every time, Oda does use it a lot in his story. One major aspect of One Piece that he uses parallel is while writing his characters. Oda writes two characters who share a lot of same story beats but they contradict one another in some major ways. This way Oda can explore some very interesting themes through his characters as well as highlight the qualities of a character by showing it in contrast to the other. One Piece's story shows us the duality of things. Characters who are opposite despite sharing many things in common as well as characters who are similar despite being on the opposite sides. And those characters are used to tackle some very interesting themes of the story from various different angles. This way we get characters like Corazon, Doflamingo and Law through whom Oda explores the theme of nature versus nurture, and Blackbeard and Akainu through whom we get to see the dangers of extremes, of absolute control versus absolute freedom. And probably the most interesting of all is Blackbeard and Luffy, both of whom are pirates in pursuit of their dreams, but the path they walk will bring very different outcome to the world. And this is not limited to just the characters. The entire world is built in such a way where every force have their opposite. A show about pirates have Marines who work as a policing force for the world. But the Marines don't rule the world. That's for the world government who have been ruling the world for the last 800 years. And we find out that they are absolute scumbags and don't care about the well-being of common people. In fact, the lives of common people is miserable because of them. So they are starting to revolt against this oppressive regime, forming the Revolutionary Army. There are many more factions in the world of One Piece who work with or against one another that makes for a very interesting power dynamic. One such example is the various organizations from the black market investing in Cross Guild, because if the Marines become weaker due to the actions of the Cross Guild, their own operations will flourish. This is one of the reasons why there is endless discourse regarding One Piece. People talk about their favorite admirals or emperors or hell, even favorite celestial dragons whenever they meet. And this style of writing allows Oda to tackle some very interesting themes through his characters. The first of which I wanna discuss is nature versus nurture. Something all of my favorite stories have in common is that they can make me think. They offer different perspective at looking at things, tell different sides of the stories. Stories about people who turned into a villain because of their circumstance and the society that molded them into what they are. But also stories about people who broke free of that mold and found their own identity. And this is where the idea of nature versus nurture comes from. How much of an individual comes from their own being and how much is shaped by their environment. And here perspective plays a vital role, because whose side of the story we are seeing can drastically change our understanding of the situation. An example would be Doflamingo. His backstory was there not to justify his action, absolutely not, but for us to understand his character and how he turned out the way he is. The story itself talks about how a different perspective can change our understanding of the world, and it is spelled out for us during the Doflamingo speech from Marineford. He sure likes to give speeches, doesn't he? I hope we get at least another one from him during the final war. Anyways, Doflamingo was right, at least in what he says in his speech. Kids who have never seen peace and kids who have never seen war have different ideals. Let's take two children who are as identical as possible and raise them at two different environments and with very different groups of people and see how they turn out. We have an answer. One of them will turn out homeless and groom young boys to be pirates, and the other will be the leader of a group of holy knights. Shanks and Shamrock represent nurture, where people are the way they are because of their environment entirely out of their control. Another character who is an excellent example of this is Vivi. From following her story during Alabasta, we know that she is a compassionate person who deeply cares for her country and her people. She is what every person wants as their leader. But what if she was raised entirely different from the way she is in the story? We know that the Nefeltari family was one of the 20 families that formed the world government, all of whom except them went on to live in the Holy Land. And the descendants of those 19 families are the Celestial Dragons. What if Vivi was raised among them? She more than likely would turn out like Tarlos' sister because all the qualities that we like in Vivi, her compassion and kindness, would never develop among other celestial dragons where they are taught that they are gods and all humans are beneath them. The part of them that is capable of being good is never fueled in that environment. This doesn't necessarily mean that they aren't capable of being good. We see a character who goes from a typical celestial dragon to being a good person after experiencing a different environment. But that was all about nurture, people being the way they are because of their environment. Where does a person's nature factor into it? Are we just the product of the environment? What role does our self or nature play into making us who we are? After all, two people may come out of the same experience very different. Dofi and Corazon are two characters who went from living the life of luxury in the Holy Land to being chased by common people and hung from the walls of a burning building. Yet, they came out of the situation very different. Corazon is traumatized by his experience when he is found by Sengoku and raised to be a marine officer, but Dofi is filled with rage against the world when Treble and the Lord finds him and turns him into a cult leader. Now, we can say that they turned out different because one was found by a marine while the other was found by Mr. Snot here, but there is a difference in their reaction to this traumatic experience. Corazon, like any child in that circumstance, is traumatized, but Dofi is filled with anger, and he turns that anger towards the world, and the first person to face it was his own father. To further explore this theme, let's bring another character into the mix. Law has the same reaction as Dofi to the traumatic event that killed his entire family and the people he knew. Dofi says that Law reminds him of himself as a kid. Both of them were angry at the world and wanted to burn it all down. But Law was able to change the course of his life because he found someone who cried for his pain. Law could change because he found someone who loved him, whereas Dofi sought his own father. There is no definite answer to how much of a person is their nature or nurture, but Oda uses parallel while writing characters to explore this theme exceptionally well but leaves the interpretation to us. This video is sponsored by Zerma66. Do you want your own Power Rangers to fight a war? Do you want to clear an entire nation's army? Then they've got you covered. Zerma66 will provide you with your own Poison Ivy and 3 other guys to fight for you. And do not believe the propaganda spread by the Marines. They are not that bad after all, they are just a family trying to get by. If you want to use their services, click the link in the description below and use code 4thplacer to get an extra war for free. Now back to the video. 2 is a short film I recently watched on YouTube which shows the life of 2 children, one of whom is rich and has everything one could ask for and lives inside a mansion, whereas the other is poor. But there is a stark difference between them. The poor kid is content and free under the blue sky, but the rich kid is not. And the film frames it as if he's in a prison through a window. And this made me think about One Piece and how it represents the class difference, and especially about the character of Sabo. Sabo is a character who goes from being a noble to living on the streets. He has experience with having everything one could ask for as well as having to fight for everything. He feels confined to his place when he is living in the mansion. That's why he leaves his home to live with Ace and Luffy. And when he was living with them on the streets fighting for scraps, he was free. But he is found by pirates his father employed and taken back to his house, and there he learns of the plan to burn the Great Terminal because a celestial dragon is coming to the Goa Kingdom. And this highlights the true extent of the decay of the society. The ruling class are treated as a higher form of humans who are born under fortunate stars or something, and the poor people are treated as trash, discarded and burned when they become an eyesore. Sabo is able to see that decay and feels suffocated and wants to go out to the sea, and his boat is sought by a celestial dragon. The noble live their lives in a bubble thinking that they are better than everyone else, and children are taught that of course it's the fault of the poor that they are poor. They should have just been born a noble. Sabo was able to escape this bubble and experience the world outside, and decided that he would rather go out to the sea than breathe any more air filled with the stench of that decay. In contrast to Sabo, we have Garling, who is the representation of the noble class. He is someone who believes that if a celestial dragon helps a filthy fishman, then they become less than scum. He represents a worldview where they are obviously something greater than everyone else. They are gods, above humans, and other races like fishmen are even less than human. Garling is someone who was born in a system where he is at the top and there is a clear dividing line drawn to separate people: celestial dragons, nobles, humans and other races. And people's birth places them in one group where they have to face the oppression of the people above them. Whereas Sabo is someone born in a family where the system favored him but he got away and now is fighting to end that system. They both play into this theme of class division of the world so well, and I hope Oda does something very interesting with this dynamic. In fact, I hope Sabo's final fight would be with Garling, which is better than with Akainu, which I have seen people talk about. How can someone watch Marineford and think, you know what, a guy we don't even know exists should be the one to defeat the villain who broke the main character? Don't you want One Piece to have a satisfying ending, like, you know, Luffy to be the one to defeat the guy who killed his brother in front of him? Anyways, talking of Akainu, we have another theme Oda tackles by showing us the different ends of the spectrum. Akainu and Blackbeard represent extremes of ideologies. Blackbeard represents freedom but to an extreme where there is no rule of law and powerful people can do what they want. And Akainu represents absolute control where people should follow the rule and anyone who breaks them should be punished without fail. Is the type of guy to shoot the hostage just to get to the criminal quicker. And also another problem with this way of thinking is that the rules that decides who is a criminal are made by terrible people, so upholding those rules doesn't mean you are upholding justice for the good of the people, you are just upholding justice as dictated by those in power. In the first major arc, our crew fights to prevent a civil war and prevent the bad guy from annexing the throne of the country. Our crew fights from the side of the current ruling group, so when people say One Piece is anti-government, they don't mean it's anti-government, but it is against the idea of absolutes. Because extreme belief in any ideology and upholding such belief will cause harm. When people go far enough apart, they reach at the same place just representing different things. This is what Akainu and Blackbeard show us. They are on the opposite sides, yet their actions bring about the same result for the people living in the world: destruction. On the other hand, people on the same sides can be just as different. Luffy and Blackbeard have the most interesting dynamic in the show. Oda did a very One Piece thing to tell us that these characters are opposites when they first met, but moments later he also showed us that they are also very similar when Blackbeard gives one of the most iconic speech in the series, which encapsulates the central theme of the story. They are both dreamers and both of them are out to achieve their dreams, but they differ in their approach and what their dreams will bring about to the world. One of them wants to be a king who doesn't rule anything and the other wants the world. They are so different in fact that Blackbeard pirates didn't have a ship for the longest time because they didn't want to get attached to it, whereas the ship for the Straw Hats came to life because of their attachment. Just like Blackbeard and Luffy, Emu and Joy Boy might share similar dynamic, but it is pure speculation as we don't even know what either of them look like. One of the reasons One Piece is a series that is so fun and interesting to talk about is because of Oda's approach to storytelling, where he will approach a theme or characters through many different perspectives to give us the fuller picture. That's how we come to value the qualities of a character after seeing someone who represents the opposite. Characters who seem simple get layers of complexity added to them as the story becomes bigger and we see a wide array of stories throughout the world. That's why even when two story arcs are definitely parallel, they are distinct because Oda is approaching it from a different perspective with all the skills he has developed as a writer and trying to show us the story through a wider lens. And with that, it's time to end the video. Thank you for watching.